Hi. So I'm bored. I have a day off and I'm home and I don't know what to do with myself. So I have a large collection of toys and I figured I would pick three different lines or three different objects that I've got that I bring up and talk about and show to the world. You can see kind of a mess of a collection behind me here, but that's just a tiny little part of it. You don't want to know how much there really is. But you can see arrayed in front of me are cool things that I've got here in the house. I figured I'd bring them up. Uh, the first, I guess I'll talk about is this. This is I think it's 1996 or 1997 Trendmasters Jupiter 2. These things are notoriously fragile, especially their landing gear. They tend to give way. But they're lights and sounds, as you can see. So all kinds of cool stuff. When you open up the interior, it has little figures, and boy, this thing is a pain in the butt to get open. So you open up the lid, take it off, and it has tiny little figures inside. And these are all the original Lost in Space characters and etc. In here we've got Bill Mummy's Danger, Will Robinson, and the little robot, and Dr. Smith, apparently. Why he's the only other character included, I don't know, because you'd think the parents or the siblings would also be important, but Dr. Smith and Will Robinson and the robot were the heart of the show. But these are hard as heck to find. These are I bought this back in the day at Kmart, and it was like maybe I want to say 25 or 30 bucks back in the day. These are a couple $100 now. They're hard as hell to find. It also contains a little what was the vehicle called? I can't remember. Little shuttle pod thing that I've got here. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. It'll come to me later on. But it's actually one of my favorite pieces, not just because of the light and sound feature, but because it's actually pretty well constructed. All the little figures and stuff are not bad for when you figure for the original price. So it's pretty cool. So that's one thing. Um, I really enjoy this little piece. A lot of the Trendmasters Lost in Space stuff was geared around the Space Chariot. That's what it was called, was the Space Chariot back in the day. It was geared around the movie they came out with in, I believe, 1997. And to kind of get everyone rabid for the new toys, they were making new versions of the old toys. These are really nice. I mean, like I say, overall, this is one of my favorite pieces in the collection. Not that I was a huge fan of Lost in Space, but like I say, this is a nice little piece. So one of my other favorites here. This is not the original Mattel Battlestar Galactica Landram. This is a reproduction. But there's a guy named Robert Bergeron who's been making the Viper, which I talked about in an earlier video. Reproduction of the Viper, and now he's making a reproduction of the Cylon Raider in 3 3/4 inch scale based on the 1970s Battlestar Galactica toys by Mattel. This is a one-to-one recreation of that little land ram. They're hard as hell to find, the real ones, because it was a Canada-only release. They were only released up in, I think it was Sears, Canada. I'm not sure. But you never really saw them here in the U.S. unless somebody happened to buy them, who lived in the U.S., bought them from someone in Canada, or they, somehow magically got them down here. I like this little piece not because of what it is, because the treads don't move. These don't. I don't know if these shoot or not. I haven't really tried them because the other ones are the big missiles for the Vipers. Man, they just fly. I didn't want to lose any of the pieces, but the fact that I can have basically a recreation of the original toy, which is almost impossible to find now in reality, it's a nice little piece. It's kind of neat. The one major flaw in the Mattel toys for Battlestar Galactica was they weren't scaled for action figures. They had tiny little action figures that came with them. I don't believe this came with any kind of figures. But there's like a Colonial Warrior and a Cylon for the little itty bitty Battlestar Galactica ships that they made. Robert Bergeron scaled his vehicles up to 3 3/4 inch scale so they can actually interact. The figures can interact with vehicles. And oh man, does it make a difference. This is already being produced as a 3 3/4 inch scale figure. Go to the Battlestar Galactica Vintage Toys group, and they will, Robert Bergeron on there will give you, and we'll sell you one of these. I can't remember how much the big ones are going for now. I think it's like 190, the big versions of these. But the Cylon Raiders will be about, I think, 240. Totally worth it, by the way. I picked up a Viper, and they're amazing. So do not deprive yourself of the opportunity if you're a big Battlestar Galactica fan, because these are amazing. So the other items you see are displayed in front of me. These are a combination of the original plush figures from Farscape, released in the late 1990s, early 2000s. There was a 20th anniversary special version of them that was released just, I think, last year. And so what I have here is a combination of the original plushes and the reproductions. And so what you've got, this is the original Rigel the 16th Dominar of Hyneria. This is the original plush figure. This is a small version. There's a much larger version I've got, but there was not a recreation done for the 20th anniversary. This is actually a prototype of the version that was later released. You can see the tag on here is from the company that actually built the prototypes. I picked up one of these along with some Godzilla plush prototypes for my wife, because she's a huge Godzilla fan. But this is basically what the original one looked like, and you can see right here, you know, it's pretty decent, especially for its price point. I think it was around $50 at the time. This is the 20th anniversary version, and you can see the fabric in every way is inferior. This is literally just awful. It's a corduroy. I don't know why they chose to use a corduroy, because Rigel doesn't look like that. And the fabric for the coat has a nicer texture, but I prefer this kind of rainbow fabric from the original. But you can see the tags, you know, are pretty much this. Well, that's right. This has a different tag, but the tags are very similar to the original plush releases. It says, though, 20th anniversary on the back, so you can see that there. But again, I think the recreations are inferior in every way to the originals. The other figures, the plush figures they released, were for the DRDs. Now, the original DRD plush, these are again made by Toy Vault. You can see they look very similar to the 20th anniversary version, but I can tell you, looking up close, the fabric choice, the plush fur they've got here, is not as good as the original. The original one is nicer in pretty much every way. This fur, it's you know, a plush, soft, cuddly sort of thing, but this looks a little bit more like the actual prop they used in the show. So, I mean, I still prefer the originals, but it's nice that they have these, because these are hard to find. These are cheap and plentiful. Hard to find, cheap and plentiful. Expensive as hell, cheap and plentiful. So you have a choice there. You want to spend a little bit more to get better quality, or do you want to go ahead and save a little bit of money and be able to have your own little DRD? I'm not going to make them fight. But the one that they came out with that's unique is the 1812 DRD. That was from about the 4th season. They started having a little DRD that Crichton, the main character, John Crichton, painted him up in red, white, and blue, and wrote 1812 on the side because it played the 1812 overture. So if you ever saw the show, you would recognize 1812. So this is nice. I actually think it's a cool thing they've got. It's still got that soft plush fabric. I would prefer the slightly smoother, sleeker fabric, but this is fine because there's never been anything like it. Got the tags on it. The Amazon seller that sold this to me liked to put their own labels on here, which kind of ruins the original tag, but whatever. The only way I could find one that wasn't super expensive. But yeah, these are sold on Amazon.com. There's I can't remember the name of the seller, but you just look for them on Amazon. They're about 25 or 30 bucks for one of these. And if you like Farscape, it's fantastic. I mean, these are fine. These are better, but these are fine. The Rigel, like I say, if you don't have one, at least this is a way for you to afford one that's inexpensive. But I really prefer the originals if you can find them. So anyway, that's some toys that I've got here I thought I would share. And enjoy your quarantine. Try not to go crazy. And we'll look for talking to you next time about 3 more toys. Don't know what yet. I'll figure it out. I've got lots of time.